Hello, YouTube denizens, it's Herc, and I'm here today to talk about Mormons and their beliefs. Now, one of the best reasons to talk about Mormons and their beliefs is because it can show just how crazy beliefs can get. Okay, for starters, uh, and for those of you who don't know, Mormonism started, supposedly, when Joseph Smith had a vision. This religion began in what was called the Burned Over District in New York, a place where so many religions had started. And Joseph Smith claimed to have seen various figures depending on when he told the story, because as he got older, his story changed and he saw more and more important figures. But basically, we're talking about he saw God, Moses, Abraham, Moroni, who knows. Moroni is an angel. And the funny thing about it, Joseph Smith seemed to be sort of obsessed with the word moron, because you can take the word Moroni, remove one letter, and what do you get? Moron. You can take the word Mormon, remove one letter, and what do you get? Moron. That's a clue, I think, to the way Joseph Smith thought. I think he was a con man. Mormons don't think he was a con man. They think he was a prophet, great prophet of modern times. This is something over 150 years ago, and the funny thing is, we know a little about Joseph Smith. There are court records that show that he was actually uh, taken into court for hunting for buried treasure, claiming he could magically see him with this treasure with his seer stones, which he'd put in his hat and look into, and then he could see treasure. And people would pay him by the hour to go out and dig treasure. And as far as we know, he never actually found any treasure. He kept claiming that there was some kind of a hex or a spell on it, and because of that, it kept going deeper as you dug for it. Now, Joseph claimed to have found a book made out of thin golden plates, and he translated them, again using his hat and some seer stones, little rocks he put in his hat. And he claimed that he could actually read this ancient language with the help of God, of course. And this ancient language is something he called Reformed Egyptian, a language that no one else has ever found. That's a clue. The problem is that when you're in a religion and you believe it, the clues don't mean much to you. Anyway, he took the plates home with him for a while and had them in a box on his kitchen table covered with gauze, and enlisted a neighbor to help him write it down, because supposedly he wasn't very literate. And he wrote the Book of Mormon that way, claiming he could see the letters by looking at the stones in his hat. Anyway, the main reason he wrote this neighbor in, I think, was because he wanted to get the Book of Mormon published. And he needed money to do that, and the neighbor had some money. Kind of worked out. At any rate, what do the Mormons believe? That's crazy. Well, one thing they believe is that there's a planet or a star or something called Kolob. And this is where the God the Father happens to live. And he procreates with all kinds of wives, and they send the spirit babies across the void to planet Earth to become human. Now, if that don't beat all, that's pretty crazy stuff. They believe that Joseph Smith could prophesy things, and Joseph acquired some Egyptian scrolls, and at great expense, I might add. And he took those scrolls and took a long time translating them at a time when nobody could translate Egyptian. There were actually Egyptian scrolls, But they didn't say what he claimed they said, which was basically that they were the original book written by Abraham himself. That's pretty crazy too, don't you think? And Mormons also believe that as they get old and die, that the men will actually become gods of their own worlds. They won't tell you this. They believe in something called milk before meat, and they always give you the milk, but I don't think you'll ever get the meat. Not unless you're pretty high up in the church. I'm guessing that some of the people high up in the Mormon church actually really know all about this stuff because they spend their lives defending against it and covering it up and making apologetics for it. I could be wrong, but I think they still know it's a con and a scam. After Joseph Smith's death, when Brigham Young led the people to Utah, he ruled the place with an iron fist and a lot of wives. He made Joseph Smith look bad. I believe Joseph Smith had 23 wives or something like that, and Brigham Young had more like 50. And a lot of money. He had a lot of money, he had a lot of power. If you think that's not what it's about, well, maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. Overall, Mormons are expected to tithe 10% of their income to the church. Given that they have quite a few million members, that can amount to quite a bit of money, but the Mormon church doesn't do much with outside charity. They do, however, help a lot of their members. Personally, I know I've done some of the work myself and been paid for it by the Mormon church. Sometimes when someone's down and out, like a woman whose husband has died and has several kids to take care of, they'll help out with their homes or something like that. And they believe they should store food up, at least 6 months worth of food storage, so that when the big calamity comes, whatever that is, they'll be ready for it. Overall, the Mormons are good people, but they get into some squabbles now and then because of their religious beliefs. For example, the Proposition 8 fiasco, where they sent money and people to California to help stop any kind of rights for gays. And the thing is, I've talked to Mormons in this area, and they don't always believe what the church does, and they don't agree with it, but it doesn't stop them from believing in the church, and it doesn't stop them from being Mormons. Most recently, there's been a squabble with American atheists over billboards being put up in Utah. They can't find a billboard company that will put any of their billboards up, no matter how innocuous or inoffensive those billboards are. They're not cooperating very well. And next year, there's supposed to be an American Atheist Conference in Salt Lake City. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out, because the Mormons still hold a bit of an iron hand in the politics of that state. If you want to learn more about the Mormons, I don't suggest you read the Book of Mormons, because Mark Twain called it chloroform in print. It's pretty tedious. And I think the best thing to do would probably go places like xmormon.org. Look for ex-Mormons on the net, and there are a lot of them. The church doesn't want you to know how many ex-Mormons there are, but there are probably more living ex-Mormons than there are living Mormons. They like to baptize dead people who weren't Mormon, just to help them out into the next kingdom. It's probably harmless, but they've offended a lot of people doing that. And so I hope I've given you some kind of an overview of Mormonism, that if you've never heard of it before, or if you don't know much about it, this will help you understand them a little bit. Thanks for listening, and I hope I help you think.